Hey, and we're here for another reading of Treasures of Darkness. And I finished yesterday's off at a particular point because the next bit I really wanted to emphasize because it starts off with I just want to acknowledge the people that had encouraged me at the time. And in my book, in my letter, I mentioned Pastor Mark Ramsey encouraging me and Pastor Leigh, but Mark and Leigh Ramsey head up Citipointe Church, and we were going to the Carindale campus at the time. Even though I moved to Caboolture, we wanted to keep the kids going to the same place, and there was Pastor Luke Harris looking after the children. And so many people in that church community encouraged and supported us. There were a few people that kind of dropped off because, for whatever their reasons are, when there's been a scandal, sometimes it's easier just to avoid. But Pastor Mark and Leigh never did. They checked on us. And this is a big church. There's, several thousand people go to this church, but it didn't matter that we could no longer give the way that we did. They would, when they saw us, they would speak to us separately together just to be an encouragement. Of course, with me being locked away, Justin would continue to take children to church and to children's church, and it meant a lot. I remember Justin saying to me, well, we'll find out who our real friends are and who were just our friends just because we had money at the time. And I was like, but I do want to acknowledge that they stepped up, and they stepped up. That's how they are. And I just want to say thank you for that. So I got to the point. The last thing I said was many of us dream of having a great ministry, but we want it on our own terms. We don't really count the cost because we cannot really see what the cost will be. I certainly didn't. Yet only by willingly paying the cost can we appreciate the joy and satisfaction of fulfilling our call. I could have gone through that sentence ignoring God and feeling sorry for myself. You can go through whatever you're going through in self-pity and ignoring God and feeling sorry for yourself and wasting what you're going through. Because Romans 8:28 is absolutely true, that God makes all things work together for our good, but it doesn't happen automatically. You can stop it from happening, but that's a whole nother message. That's something that I actually preach on. So here's the next bit. One of my last conversations was with Pastor Mark Ramsey, and it was shortly before my sentencing. I remember where I was standing. We were just to the side of those stairs that go down into the lower foyer behind the where the cameras are. We're just to the side. It was after a service. I told him I was confident of a miracle, but there was a chance I would still go to prison. So we were believing God like crazy that it would be like, phew, that was close, and she didn't go, but I ended up going. And I said, I don't want a prison ministry. I half joked. In that moment, I experienced conviction from the Holy Spirit. That still small voice asked me, who does? Those women are just as important as anyone else to me. And I repented of my shallow selfishness. From that point on, I quietly pressed into God about preparing me for incarceration. One thing I did ask him was that it would be truly worth it, that I would not waste the experience, not just one soul, but many. Then as now, my prayers were that I am effective. Yes, I was believing for a miracle, and gosh, maybe if my faith had been higher, maybe I wouldn't have gone to prison. Maybe if there was some prayerful incantation. Look, life happens to everybody. There's no getting around it. Some of these things happen because of us, and sometimes it's because of other people, but everybody faces adversity, and sometimes we're delivered from them, and sometimes we're delivered through them. I happen to have to go through that fire. And if you're in the fire right now, press in. Just press in. Anyway, that's another, as I said, that's another message. But don't run away from church, because there will be people there, and you can ask God to show them to you. There will be people there, maybe not everybody, who will encourage you along the way, because that's really, really important. We can't really just do it on our own. There are seasons of being on our own, but we're meant to work as a body together. Are you praying for provision for your ministry? Why not pray to be effective instead? So my prayers were that I would be effective, but are you praying for provision, or are you praying to be effective? The provision you really need will be there, and your focus will be on the people who need you. So you pray to be effective, and the provision will come to enable you to be effective. When we go out to work, our bags are searched. That's getting back to when I was working at the cemetery at the time, the Nudgee Cemetery. I didn't name it in the book. When we go out to work, our bags are searched. We can only take our lunch and a drink, no money, no book. We can't buy anything anyway. We cannot talk to the public or make a phone call. I had a piece of paper in my shirt pocket this morning. It had some notes I'd made on it. So I had to empty my pockets. "What's that in your pocket, Patricia?" asked the officer. Looking very guilty, I unfolded it and handed it over. "It's just a thought I wrote down." "Oh no, she'll really think I'm odd," I thought. She read it, and to my surprise, she gave it back. My note was a topic I had been developing. It read as follows: Are you passionate about the work of the ministry, or are you compassionate towards those whom the ministry is for? So, are you passionate about your ministry, or are you compassionate for those that your ministry is supposed to serve? See, the emphasis is on, is it about you and what you're doing, or is it about the people God wants you to touch? Compassion will create passion. If you're feeling dry, this is just, I didn't write this down. I did write compassion will create passion. But if you're feeling a bit flat, dry, and a bit sort of lukewarm, then ask God to show you his heart for the people that you're serving, not so that you feel overburdened, but so it refreshes your focus, so that you don't get burnt out, but your focus is off yourself and onto what you're called to do. And then maybe some things you're doing might drop away because they're actually extraneous to what you're supposed to be doing, perhaps. Compassion will create passion. And passion without compassion is just ambition. If you're ambitious to have a big church, or you're ambitious to be recognized in ministry, or you're ambitious to have just, a really thriving ministry so that people admire you, you've got your priorities wrong. It's good to have goals, and it's good to be ambitious to achieve things. But if you don't have compassion, all your passion is just fleshly. It's ambition. So it's always important to keep your heart checked. Someone wrote and asked if I were worried about someone else using my emails to create sermons, effectively knocking off my message. And if they did, I'd be flattered. It wouldn't be the first time a pastor has taken credit for someone else's gift. Like Paul, I say, if Christ be preached, who cares? I took 2 new girls out to the cemetery on Friday. I asked one if she had a partner on the outside. I was looking forward to seeing Justin on the weekend. I did have one for 10 years, but she broke up with me. Her family is Christian and she's trying to find God again, so she left me. I know it's great to pray for the prodigal daughter to return, but I had never given any thought to the abandoned loved one left behind. I prayed all day for this woman. I'm still waiting on the Lord for an answer. In the meantime, I'm building a friendship with someone who knows I belong to the group that took her lover away. So, these are very real things that people go through. So then I slotted in, I'm finishing up, so that's where I finished here, and then I have a picture of my family that I've slotted in, 2007. From left, Olivia, Justin, Felicity, me, Chelsea. I won't share screen because I'll have to flick around. I should have prepared that earlier, but you'll see it. At that point, we had been through the liquidation, losing all our properties, cash and other investments, including our family home. Justin and I were determined to keep things as normal as possible for our girls. He sold real estate and I began working for a corporate and private investigation company promoting their fraud prevention program, because I'd met this guy and said, I told him my troubles, and I just kept promoting him to everybody, because had I known him, I would have had things checked out and I wouldn't have gotten into trouble, because he actually knew the guy who ended up being the crook that I was working for. So anyway, our earnings paid rent, lawyers and school fees. Our children's school environment was and still is more important than buying a house. More important than buying a house. Kids first. Later, when we couldn't even pay rent, we moved in with my parents at Caboolture and still made sure our children attended a good Christian school. They're out of school now. It was during this time I researched and wrote most of Dangerous Wealth, What Every Successful Woman Needs to Know to Avoid Being Ripped Off. Here it is. So I didn't publish it, but this book is the one that I wrote while I was waiting, when all this stuff was going on before I went to jail. So, and I didn't publish it until after I came home because I didn't know what was going to happen. So that one will help you avoid getting ripped off in finance and relationships. You can find that on my website, speakertrishjenkins.com, and go to the store there. So that's the end of that one. And tomorrow, which is Wednesday anyway, will be Wednesday, 25th of March, according to different date tomorrow, but that will be that letter continued, as you can see. Okay, so I will endeavour to keep me accountable. Send me messages and saying, hey, Trish, where's your reading? We've got, you're supposed to be doing this every day. So just to build some momentum and keep it all going. All right, so thank you so much, and I will see you again tomorrow, definitely. Okay, bless you. Bye.